In this example, we're multiplying together some algebra which have got fractions in them, so we can see we've got a fraction here, and in fact this can also be written as a fraction when we get round to it. So let's first of all rewrite it as a fraction. A squared BC over 1 multiplied by AC over A squared B. This is exactly the same as the questions with the numbers in, but we just don't have the numbers. So we first of all need to break this down. A squared, you can either do it using your prime factor tree as A times A, or you can just write it in full without using the prime factor tree now. So A squared is A times B times C over 1 multiplied by A times C, and again we've got A squared again, A times B. Now we can bring those two fractions to make them in a single fraction. So we've got A, B, C, C, 1, A, B. And now we want to see whether we need to change the order in order to see whether anything can be cancelled down or simplified. We've got an A, an A, and a B. Okay, and we don't really need to write that 1 there because if it's a 1, we know it even if it's not written as anything. So let's now split up our fraction again, back to make it so it's easy to simplify. So we've got A over A, so we can just ignore that 1, multiplied by A over A times B over B, and then we've got C over nothing, so it must be over 1, A over nothing, so it must be 1, and C over 1. And that means now we can cancel down some of these elements of the fraction. So A divided by A is 1, A divided by A is 1, B divided by B is 1. And now we can just bring the fraction as into one whole fraction again. So as one whole fraction, we've got, down here we've got 1 times 1 times 1 times C over 1 times A over 1 times C over 1. Bringing it all together, we've got 1 times 1 times 1, which is simply 1, and then we've got C, we've got A, we've got C, and we've got 1 times 1 times 1. We can see as well here that we can bring those two C's together, because C times C, they could be put together, C times A, and therefore we will end up with our answer, which is going to be C times A over 1, or we could write that as C squared A over 1, or in fact we normally put the letters first in an alphabetical order, so A times C squared.